Wonderful. Thank you. Thank all of you for being here and joining us. As mentioned, my name is David Livingston with the Atlantic Council, and it's a pleasure to be here, particularly after just wrapping up 3 days of wonderful programming at something called the Global Energy Forum, which the Atlantic Council puts on every year at Abu Dhabi to kick off Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week. We discussed the geopolitics of the energy transformation at that event. And I'll tell you that, like never before, artificial intelligence featured in so many of the conversations that went on there. Whether it was Dr. Sultan of Adnak talking about the concept of oil and gas 4.0 and the role that digital technologies like artificial intelligence play in that, to the increasing intersection between artificial intelligence, cybersecurity concerns in the energy sector, and the role that artificial intelligence is going to potentially play in solving our sustainability challenges. We've got a great dynamic duo up here today, so I want to jump right into it. Jamil, I want to start with you just because I noticed on your bio you worked for IBM, you worked for Apple, you're now with Roland Berger. You've probably thought about artificial intelligence from a variety of different angles in different places. I'd love to know more about your history and what has brought you to focus in particular on AI in your current role.
Sure, thank you. So I want to start with a small story, probably dated 20 plus years when I entered the workforce, when engineering was hot, and we were actually the .com happened, and we were just getting hired right and left. So one of the biggest things they started to sell you is the work and life balance. And I entered an interview, and I saw 996, and I said, "Wow, this is seriously nice work and life balance. We get to work actually 996 hours a year." And the interviewer said, "No, son, it's 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week." So as humans, we always actually create inventions to make our lives easier. And one of the greatest inventions, I'd say, on the planet today, or that are put intact, is the ubiquitous computing universe. So with artificial intelligence, with the use today of artificial intelligence, the evolution of artificial intelligence, IoT, and blockchain, I believe we can actually improve humans' lives by being more, and companies by being more efficient, having data. So today, if we think about it, there is a race around the world in extracting data and how we analyze this data. After all, we all heard it before, data is the new oil. And looking at artificial intelligence, it can process data faster than human beings using very complex algorithms that helps us, ultimately.
Wonderful, thank you. I want to come back to that, but real quick, Bethlehem, you have a very interesting angle on the major upheavals we're seeing in artificial intelligence research, in that you're trying to teach people about AI, to create a population of citizens, a population of workers that better understand what AI is and where it fits into their lives. Why did you choose to teach AI of all things? And in Ethiopia, where you're teaching it, what does AI potentially mean for Africa and some of the great challenges and great opportunities that we see there?
Yeah. So as he said, I am from Ethiopia, and I think as a developing country and Africa as a developing continent could benefit a lot from AI. I mean, when you see how the mobile phone has been adapted to Africa, it has been more popular than the computer or the laptops or the PCs. So the thing is, in Africa, we can leapfrog into using AI technologies, blockchain technologies in education, in health, in decision making and such. And I believe that will be possible if we teach the people that are making the decisions and also teach people that will be able to make these technologies. And that's why I have started teaching AI, especially in Ethiopia, where you don't see a lot of technology innovations, but there's a lot of potential, as it is one of the it's the second largest country in Africa. And there's a lot of potential, and there's a lot of hope in AI and robotics in solving Africa's problem in the future.
Wonderful. Jamil, I want you to help me with something I've been struggling with a little bit. We hear all sorts of different, let's call them digital disruptions that are going on, new technologies, new approaches, new methodologies that are changing everything from energy to water to education. They're having ripples throughout the labor force. You hear about blockchain, you hear about artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. What exactly is AI itself? Help us bound artificial intelligence as a concept and maybe embed that within the panoply, the universe of different digital disruptions that we're seeing take place simultaneously.
Sure. Thanks. But so I'll try not to be too technical. But basically, I'd like to take it a step back. If we are to look at human inventions, they are based on things that we know and we see. So if we want to think about artificial intelligence, I'd like us to imagine the human brain. And it's really coupled by, if you imagine actually a human's brain and the body. If you look at your sensors, which is the fingertips, the smell that you smell, these sensors, which I'd like to call just as actually any sensors that we get, they're connected to the human's brain by Internet of Things, let's say, and it's digested to the human brain by artificial intelligence, which is our brain. So artificial intelligence is very simply the algorithms that are used that are mimicking human's brain that helps the machine analyzes data. Ultimately, we have built actually deep learning algorithms, decision tree, machine learning, which is a different algorithm, and artificial neural networks, which are based actually on the neurons that are used to make our decisions. These together, all of them, along coupled with the Internet of Things, helps us take the data, analyze it, and creates this artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence actually, there is a supervised and unsupervised version, where the supervised version, you kind of educate the machine itself. And there's, of course, classification and regression, which will go probably into details. Perhaps I should take a step back. And there is actually more of an unsupervised version where the machine will start clustering groups and things together and will look at how, what is the actually answer that it needs to achieve, and it will start coupling it and making its own decision based on very complex algorithms. Again, machine learning, deep learning, and artificial neural networks, and decision tree, of course.
So let me ask about the algorithms again. And we hear so much nowadays about the AI race, that whether it's companies or whether it's countries, we're pitched in a race to develop AI dominance or an artificial intelligence edge over competitors or peers. There seems to be an interesting debate that exists over which matters more. The quality of the algorithms which are being deployed, so the ability of an entity to really write these very sophisticated algorithms, or whether the edge goes to those who might have an inferior or subpar algorithm, but have massive quantities of raw data that can be fed into that algorithm. And it gets to that learning process you talked about. I'm curious for both of you, your answers, which matters more, the algorithm or the vast quantity of data that's available?
Go ahead, Bethlehem. You go first.
I think they matter both equally, because I was talking to you earlier about the bias, right? The algorithms cannot, I wouldn't say they can be perfect, because the algorithms are defined by the people who write them, and those people might be biased, might have some kind of, different look or opinion than the community, and that might not make the algorithm as perfect, I don't think there's a perfect algorithm when we come to AI, but also the data is equally as important, because there's an example for example, a word association that an AI does is man is to king as woman is to queen, right? Man is to brother as women is to sister. But when you ask the AI, man is to doctor, it responds with what? Women to nurse. So this means, I mean, doesn't necessarily mean women are always nurses, right? This is not the fault of the algorithm, but the data that was fed into this AI. And I believe they're both equally important.
Interesting. It's a great point. Jamil.
I must agree, actually, it's the latter. So as the technology evolves and as the mathematicians and data scientists actually start crunching and developing better algorithms, along with the quality of the data that we receive, because it's garbage in, garbage out ultimately. So as the data, the quality of the data that we have improves, and as the quality of the algorithm improves, over time, artificial intelligence becomes more helpful and starts giving us better information.
Excellent. So we've established kind of some conceptual grounding here. I want to dig into some sectoral examples of how this is making a difference in practice. As I mentioned in my opening, we know that Adnan and Dr. Sultan are very interested in this concept of oil and gas 4.0. A lot of that, at the heart of that, is the application of artificial intelligence and machine learning to find new efficiencies in the process, and thus to decrease costs as well as the greenhouse gas footprint of, let's say, oil and gas production here in the Emirates. Whether it's oil and gas, whether it's other industrial processes, Jamil, can you give us some concrete examples of how this is being applied right now to reduce the footprint and increase the sustainability of some of these industries?
Sure. So Industry 4.0 actually is a combination between cyber and physical security, between augmentation and automation. It's basically creating smart factories. Now, most companies are trying to be more efficient. As we are looking into oil and gas or renewable energy, the concept is really the same. We need to have as many sensors as possible. We need to reduce human interaction, save cost, achieve these things faster and better. And this brings us to a very interesting concept called the digital twin. So the digital twin is not something new, actually. It was created in 1970 by NASA to bring Apollo 13 back on Earth. And the digital twin is pretty much actually a replica of a process or a structure that allows us to work on it, maintain, monitor without human intervention or with a minimal human intervention. So let's take the wind turbines, for example. With the speed of the wind, how it changes, I can actually go ahead and have the right sensors on the wind turbine. I can look at the digital twin. I can get the numbers and the data from the Internet of Things, crunch it into an artificial intelligence system and the data analytics. We can look into this data, and I can analyze the speed of the wind, how the wind turbine operator is operating their wind turbine, and therefore I can probably increase or decrease the increase the efficiency of the data, but increase or decrease the wattage that the wind turbine is operating on. Same thing with an oil well. Same thing actually with monitoring the waves and trying to predict tsunamis. So it's the same concept, but we're working on it differently with artificial intelligence and using the Internet of Things because they're really intertwined.
It sounds like a powerful force for good across industries, across society. But I'm struck by the paradox here that there's also a lot of fear of AI. Where I'm from in the United States, there was a recent poll taken showing 41% of American adults support continuing AI development. The rest say we should just stop where we are here. I'm curious to hear from both of you, and you, Bethlehem, first. Is that a misunderstanding? Is that a lack of information? Or are people right to be skeptical of some of the developments that we see so far?
For example, I want to start with the Sophia the robot. Sophia the robot is a very human-like robot. In Ethiopia, we have the company I'm working with, which is ICOG Labs, actually does most of the software development for Sophia. So, I mean, when people see Sophia, when they interact with Sophia, she looks very human. So that really, really scares them. But being in a lab that actually works on Sophia and also is working on AI, I would say it's okay, it's right to care about who's actually working on this AI technologies, because at the end of the day, the people are those who are going to develop the AIs that will eventually become the Sophias of the world. So I would say I would care more about the people rather than the AIs. But at this point, we should care more about how the people who are working on AI actually code those devices, work with those robots, because it could actually impact it in the future. But at this point, I would say, because I talk with a lot of people, and there is a huge misunderstanding of AI. Because, you know, Hollywood depicts it as the Terminator, and you see a lot of scary things that AI does. But in my opinion, AI does a lot of good. It's useful for making decisions. It's useful for a lot of things that we can't even imagine at this point. So I think, and that's why I'm currently working in education, because the awareness that has been created in AI is not enough. And building that awareness, and also having people who are, you know, ethical while developing AI, and having those rules is important to have a good AIs in the future.
Absolutely.
Look,
Jamil, what is it? Is it John Connor coming back from the future to terminate our jobs? What should we make sense of this?
Look, when you asked me this question, honestly, the neurons in my brain started flying out. I think I'm going to grow hair again. It's basically, I think I look at it in several ways. So human beings are really in fear of what we don't know. But let's be more realistic. So being an engineer and a consultant, people read these statistics and don't know how to make sense out of it. So let's try to dig deeper into it. The World Bank said by 2025, there are 800 million jobs are going to be lost. People read that. But they didn't read the second part, which says another new 1 billion jobs are going to be created by 2025. So as the workforce is aging, and as we are actually preparing for the new world, there will be about 200 million jobs, additional million jobs that will be created. That's one. Now let's look at the AI itself and what it's doing. Today you can connect AI actually and diagnose cancer faster. You can generate actually energy better. You can send, you can use RPA, which is, robotic processing. You can use RPA basically for really for crunching the numbers in, for example, accounting, if people are having multiple balance sheets. I can probably actually look at a digital twin, and it can save my maintenance time, and it can tell me when the wind turbine was maintained. How it's going to be maintained next, what happens if I don't maintain it, and it can probably fix it. So these things are interesting, but what we go back into full circle into humans who are creative, who are dealing with complex projects, will not be out of jobs. Humans create inventions to make their jobs easier. So any mundane job or any job that requires repetition will be eliminated and automated by machines. Therefore, humans have to elevate their skills, elevate their thinking. We need to invest this. We need to embrace it. And you know what? I'm not going to take us too far. I'm going to take us 150 years back. 150 years back, we all, actually our ancestors, were riding horses and camels, whether we like it or not. That's the fact. There were only two jobs, saddlers and smiths. You either, do the upholstery of the horse, or you do the horseshoe, and that's the smith. As the evolution of the car happened, and the evolution of mechanics and cars and etc., the saddler had to adapt to creating upholstery for the car and steering wheels. And the smith actually created the body of the car. But then there are new jobs that got created. The mechanics, there's actually the brakes, so we need the rubber, so we need to create that, and so forth. So there were new jobs were created. I'm pretty sure any person back then, when they saw a car and they were riding a horse or a camel, they were wondering, you know what, this is scary. And same thing with AI. It does take education.
Excellent. Education is oftentimes linked with policy. So I want to ask a policy question. Whether it's labor policy or whether it's technology policy, who's getting it right and why? What are they doing? As you take a tour across the world, maybe let's start, Jamil, let's start right here in the Emirates. What sort of policy frameworks do you see are being put in place to shape the way that AI is being applied in the economy and in society?
Listen, so the beauty of the UAE and the Arab world, it's a young nation. And the UAE specifically, there's actually an adaptation and acceptance all the way from the top. So they have been actually the fourth or the fifth in the world to adapt an AI strategy. And they have appointed the first minister of AI to drive the strategy. So there's actually a force onto transforming and accepting new technologies from drones, from AI, from 3D printing, from blockchain. Actually, there's a mandate from Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid is by 2021, I think, the government, actually all of the government has to be on blockchain, or most of it. And that is amazing. So you don't get that much of a buy-in. The citizens themselves, they are actually developed, they're accepting, and they're moving forward. So this is actually critical, I think. And there are only few nations. While we are in the West, advanced in the West and the East, so China and the US, where the biggest AI inventions are happening, the policy does take a while because these are big institutions with a lot of history, a lot of legislation, so it does take longer to move a bigger ship. So I believe actually this place, along with Singapore and others, will be able to move the needle much faster and actually build the future, or show us actually the future much faster.
It's really interesting, and in the context of Ethiopia, I want to sort of take where Jamil ended it and take it a bit further and ask: do you think that there's going to be fragmentation of sort of a multipolar, let's say, AI order in which there's a set of, let's say, there's a universe of algorithms that sort of exists with U.S. data. There's a universe of algorithms that exists with Chinese data, and maybe there are one or two more. I mean, he highlighted obviously the UAE and Singapore. Where does Africa fit into this? Do you think we're going to see a uniquely African approach to data, a uniquely African approach to digital innovations like artificial intelligence?
Yes, I believe so, because back to education again, because when you see technology, when you see data AI, it actually can be learned online, right? So the thing is, in our lab, we have a team of over 70 people who do AI, but they haven't learned it through formal education. I started coding when I was 9, and I didn't do it through formal education. Things might, policy-wise and government-wise, things might be going slow, but people are actually taking the initiative to work on apps, to work on web applications that include AI and bring solutions to Africa. So I think we'll see a lot of emerging AI tools and also a lot of unique African apps that include AI in their and their ecosystem. And I think new talent, new technologies will definitely arise from Africa as it did in Asia in the future.
Terrific. Time is short. I know we're running a little bit behind, and I want to be a responsible citizen, try and get us back on schedule. So this is going to be the final question, a lightning round. Same question to both of you. You know, Jamil, you've worked, as we noted, at IBM. You've worked at Apple. You're no stranger to visionary tech founders who have an expansive view of how they think the future is going to play out. It's almost impossible nowadays to talk about AI without someone bringing up this concept of the singularity. I want to know, when it comes to that vision of the future, when it comes to, you know, to a future scenario, are each of you more in the Elon Musk camp, more in the Jeff Bezos camp, or do you see the future different from both of them? Bethlehem, let's start with you first.
I would say, I mean, the singularity is a very interesting concept, and I see it as a human, if AIs and machines take over, I would say that it would give us more time to be human, more time to have, to experience love, to experience what matters most to humans and what makes us different. And I think even in the future, I mean, I think personally we are mortals because we're in this body. We are in, it's something that needs constant maintenance, constant follow-up. And in the near future, maybe in 100 years, if we're able to achieve that singularity in which we'll be able to think as, you know, a one big organism that that actually maintains itself and also can survive, I think that would be a great world. That's my thought on singularity, and I think and I believe that AI and robotics will help us achieve this. So I would say this is my own kind of view, and yeah.
Terrific. I think it's a hope that many of us share. So, Jamil.
Honestly, it's a very interesting question. The truth is I don't know, as many of us. I believe when I think of singularity, and I'm just going to throw the dots out there on the canvas, and you go ahead and draw whatever you want to draw out of it. So I believe today the facts are there are 400 different standards in IoT. These needs to be standardized, or we need to start building islands in industries. Ubiquitous computing, in order for singularity to happen, you need actually ubiquitous computing, you need ubiquitous communication and connectivity everywhere. Even in the advanced world, we only actually have covered less than 30% of the land. So there's a lot that's going to happen there. In addition to that, you have, you know, if we are thinking about Moore's law, which is very simply saying that all of these transistors are going to be built and doubled on the actual circuit. Actually, Moore himself have discredited his law back in 2005 and said this cannot happen forever. So there is no such thing as infinite, you know, reproduction. Then if you think about actually, you know, all the machines, while we are feeding it, you know, how to draw, how to do other things, what if it's actually there's a divine intervention? What if they start reading religious books? Are they going to stop themselves from reproducing or not? Or are they going to create that? The answer is I really don't know. But as a man of faith, I believe technological singularity will not happen, cannot technologically possibly happen. I think Hollywood and others would like to portray technological singularity, and that's why people fear artificial intelligence. But there are a lot of downturns of things that may not happen. As engineers, as human beings, that's the paradox. We are trying to achieve technological singularity for one reason only: to simplify our lives, to provide empathy. You know, when the game Go, when AlphaGo, actually created by DeepMind, acquired by Google, simply beat the champion in ancient game Go. While the champion was crying, the machine, the artificial intelligence, felt no joy of winning, nor it actually felt of hugging anything. So such a machine cannot be provided empathy. At the end of the day, the message is we need to create jobs with compassion. That is what we are as humans, and that is how we will coexist with AI.
Terrific. Thank you. And Bethlehem, one final thought perhaps
One
on that,
thing,
since it ties into what you said.
Because I believe that if we don't understand something, we can't build it, right? So what he said before, empathy, consciousness, love, we don't fully understand these things. We understand how the human intelligence works, how we reason and such, but if we eventually understand this concepts, I think we'll be able to build it into AIs. I think this might be a very positive view of it, but I think that's possible. And I think we'll have AIs that will love. We'll have AIs that have empathy. And I think it's a matter of if we raise our children as evil, they'll be evil. If we raise them kind and if we put those values into them of kindness and good, they'll turn out to be good. And I think AIs are not any different from our children. And yeah, that's what I think.
Terrific. Thank you both. What I'm taking away from this is a little hopeful note at the end that perhaps in the process of further debating and deliberating over the developments we see in artificial intelligence, we will, in the process, learn to look a little bit more introspectively at ourselves and the way that we operate as human beings in these societies. And that will probably be for the better for all of us. So let me thank both of you. Again, this is a conversation I'm sure we'll carry out into the halls over the rest of WFES and the events going on this week. But thank you both again, and thanks to the audience for joining us.
Thank you.
Very much.